It is quite possible that entity may have entered into some transactions with related parties. Such transactions may be only paper transactions and may not have actually occurred. The auditor may not be aware of such related party relationships, or audit procedures may not be able to detect probable wrongdoings in such transactions. 3. Not in nature of investigation. As already discussed, audit is not an official investigation. Hence, auditor cannot obtain absolute assurance that financial statements are free from material misstatements due to frauds or errors. 4. Timeliness of financial reporting and decrease in relevance of information over time. The relevance of information decreases over time and auditor cannot verify each and every matter. Therefore, a balance has to be struck between reliability of information and cost of obtaining it. Consider, for example, an auditor who is conducting audit of a company since last 2 years. During these 2 years, he has sought detailed information from management of company regarding various matters. During his 3rd year stint, he chooses to rely upon some information obtained as part of audit procedures of 2nd year. However, it could be possible that something new has happened and that information is not relevant. So, the information being relied upon by auditor is not timely and may have lost its reliability. 5. Future events. Future events or conditions may affect an entity adversely. Adverse events may seriously affect ability of an entity to continue its business. The business may cease to exist in future due to change in market conditions, emergence of new business models or products, or due to onset of some adverse events. Therefore, it is in view of above factors that an auditor cannot provide a guarantee that financial statements are free from material misstatements due to frauds or errors. Inherent limitations of audit, SAR 200, overall objectives of the independent auditor and the conduct of an audit in accordance with standards on auditing. The auditor is not expected to, and cannot, reduce audit risk to zero because there are inherent limitations of an audit. The inherent limitations of an audit arise from the nature of financial reporting. The preparation of financial statements involves judgment by management. The nature of audit procedures. There are practical and legal limitations on the auditor's ability to obtain audit evidence, such as possibility that management or others may not provide, intentionally or unintentionally, the complete information relevant for preparation and presentation of FS. Fraud may involve sophisticated and carefully organized schemes. Not in the nature of investigation. An audit is not an official investigation into alleged wrongdoing. Timeliness of financial reporting and decrease in relevance of information. Over time, relevance of information, and thereby its value, tends to diminish. Over time, and there is a balance to be struck between the reliability of information and its cost. Future events. Future events or conditions may affect an entity adversely. Adverse events may seriously affect ability of an entity to continue its business. 8. What is an engagement? Engagement means an arrangement to do something. In the context of auditing, it means a formal agreement between auditor and client under which auditor agrees to provide auditing services. It takes the shape of engagement letter. 8.1 External audit engagements. The purpose of external audit engagements is to enhance the degree of confidence of intended users of financial statements. Such engagements are also reasonable assurance engagements. For example, in India, companies are required to get their annual accounts audited by an external auditor. Even non-corporate entities may choose to have their accounts audited by an external auditor because of benefits of such an audit. 9. Benefits of audit. Why audit is needed? Diamond Suit audited accounts provide high-quality information. It gives confidence to users that information on which they are relying is qualitative and it is the outcome of an exercise carried out by following auditing standards recognized globally. Diamond Suit in case of companies. shareholders may or may not be involved in daily affairs of the company. The financial statements are prepared by management consisting of directors. As shareholders are owners of the company, they need an independent mechanism so that financial information is qualitative and reliable. Hence, their interest is safeguarded by an audit. Diamond Suit and Audit acts as a moral check on employees from committing frauds for the fear of being discovered by audit. Diamond Suit audited financial statements are helpful to government authorities for determining tax liabilities. Diamond Suit audited financial statements can be relied upon by lenders, bankers for making their credit decisions, i.e., whether to lend or not to lend to a particular entity. Diamond Suit and Audit may also detect fraud or error or both. Diamond Suit and Audit reviews existence and operations of various controls operating in any entity. Hence, it is useful at pointing out deficiencies. 10. Audit mandatory or voluntary. It is not necessary that audit is always legally mandatory. There are entities like companies who are compulsorily required to get their accounts audited under law. Even non-corporate entities may be compulsorily requiring audit of their accounts under tax laws. For example, in India, every person is required to get accounts audited if turnover crosses certain threshold limit under income tax law. It is also possible that some entities like schools may be required to get their accounts audited for the purpose of obtaining grant or assistance from the government. Audit is not always mandatory. Many entities may get their accounts audited voluntarily because of benefits from the process of audit. Many such concerns have their internal rules requiring audit due to advantages flowing from an audit. 11. WHO appoints an auditor. Generally, an auditor is appointed by owners or in some cases by constitutional or government authorities in accordance with applicable laws and regulations. For example, in case of companies, auditor is appointed by members, shareholders, in annual general meeting (AGM). Shareholders are owners of a company and auditor is appointed by them in AGM. However, in case of government companies in India, auditor is appointed by Controller and Auditor General of India, CAG, an independent constitutional authority. Take case of a firm who engages an auditor to audit its accounts. In such a case, auditor is appointed by partners of firm. There may be a situation in which auditor may be appointed by a government authority in accordance with some law or regulation. For example, an auditor may be appointed under tax laws by a government authority. 12. To whom report is submitted by an auditor. The outcome of an audit is written audit report in which auditor expresses an opinion. The report is submitted to person making the appointment. In case of companies, these are shareholders. In case of a firm, to partners who have engaged him. We shall now discuss understanding reached so far from a case study involving discussion among students. Regarding nature, scope, limitations, benefits of auditing and other related matters. Case Study 1. Rohit, Gurpreet, Ali and Goreti are friends since their school days based in Mumbai. They have cleared CA foundation exams in the same attempt and now plan to appear for CA intermediate exams. All of them are avid news listeners and regularly keep track of business news even on social media. They are trying to understand new subjects including auditing. Rohit, Gurpreet and Ali have also started attending live coaching classes, LCC, being conducted by Board of Studies of ICAI. Goreti has not been able to join live coaching classes yet, as she was away on a holiday with her parents. However, she plans to catch it up with her friends very soon. Ali had also joined the classes but he had skipped some lectures. During one informal get-together, their discussions centered around new subject of auditing. They discussed many things regarding its nature, scope, benefits and other general practical issues. Goreti was regular in keeping track of audited results. of companies being published in leading newspapers. Her view was that audited financial statements of companies give 100% guarantee to different stakeholders. It is the main reason behind so much reliance upon auditing. But she could not understand why wrongdoings in financial matters are being discovered after many. Understand why wrongdoings in financial matters are being discovered after many. Ali also concurred with her view and added that when financial statements are audited, each and every transaction appearing in books of accounts is verified. However, he could not give clarity to Goretti. Gurpreet was of the opinion that audit was conducted on the basis of sample checking. He was also of the view that audited financial statements are not a guarantee against probable wrongdoings in financial matters of the companies. Not to be left behind, Rohit also jumped in the fray. He supported Gurpreet and also added something of his own. Based on above, answer the following questions. 1. Gurpreet was of the view that audited financial statements are not a guarantee against probable wrongdoings in financial matters of companies. What kind of assurance does audit of financial statements provide? A. It provides reasonable assurance, meaning a moderate level of assurance. B. It provides reasonable assurance, meaning a low level of assurance. C. It provides reasonable assurance, meaning a high level of assurance. D. It provides reasonable assurance, meaning an absolute level of assurance. 2. Rohit added that auditor can force an employee of the company to provide him required information and documents. Can he do so? A. Yes, he can do so. It is necessary to obtain audit evidence. B. Yes, he can do so. There are express rights given to him in this respect. C. No, he cannot do so. He can only request for providing him with necessary information and documents. But it cannot be forced by him. D. No, he cannot do so. He has no right of seeking information and documents. Therefore, question of forcing does not arise. 3. Ali had listened in one of the classes that audit covers all aspects of an entity and concluded that each and every transaction of entity is verified by auditor. Goretti also seemed to be in agreement with him, but she was of the view that besides this, it also meant that audit should be so organized to cover all areas of an entity. Which of following statements is appropriate in this regard? A. Only view of Ali is correct. B. Only view of Goretti is correct. C. Views of both Ali and Goretti are correct. D. Views of both Ali and Goretti are incorrect. 4. All of them also discussed about benefits of auditing. Which of the following is not a likely benefit of auditing? A. Since auditing is connected to future events, audited information can be easily relied upon by users. B. Errors or frauds may be discovered during audit. C. Government authorities can make use of audited accounts for different purposes. D. It can help in bringing out deficiencies in maintenance of financial records. 5. Goretti told her friends that she had read a news report about how a company had misled its auditors by producing some fabricated documents. Which of following statements seems to be appropriate in this regard? A. It was wrong on the part of auditor to rely upon fabricated documents. He must have discovered it is the same falls within the scope of his duties. B. Although it was wrong on the part of auditor to rely upon fabricated documents, he cannot do anything in the matter. He has to report on the basis of documents provided to him. He has no duty in this regard. C. Auditor has to conduct the audit by exercising professional skill. But he is not an expert in discovering genuineness of documents. Hence, management consisting of dishonest persons may have led him to rely upon fabricated documents deliberately. D. Management cannot mislead auditor due to high level of knowledge and expertise possessed by him. The above is an outlier case, one of the rare odd cases. Answer to questions involving case studies. 1. C. 2. C. 3. D. 4. 5. C. Test your understanding. 4. Zeba Products is a partnership firm engaged in trading of designer dresses. The firm has appointed J.J. & Co. chartered accountants to audit their accounts for a year. The auditors were satisfied with control systems of firm, carried out required procedures and necessary verifications. In particular, they carried out sample checking of purchases, traced purchase bills to GST portal and also made confirmations from suppliers. They were satisfied with audit evidence obtained by them as part of audit exercise. An audit report was submitted to the firm giving an opinion that financial statements reflected true and fair view of state of affairs of the firm. However, later on, it was discovered that purchase manager responsible for procuring dresses from one location was also booking fake purchases of small values by colluding with unethical dealers. Payments to these dealers were also made in connivance with accountant through banking channel. The partners of firm blame auditors for futile audit exercise. Are partners of firm correct in their viewpoint? Imagine any probable reason for such a situation. Audit is a type of assurance engagement under which auditor gives an opinion as to whether financial statements give a true and fair view of state of affairs of the concern. However, assurance engagements are not restricted to audit alone. We shall now discuss meaning of assurance engagement and different types of assurance engagements. 13. Meaning of assurance engagement. Assurance engagement means an engagement in which a practitioner expresses a conclusion designed to enhance the degree of confidence of the intended users other than the responsible party about the outcome of the evaluation or measurement of a subject matter against criteria. It means that the practitioner gives an opinion about specific information due to which users of information are able to make confident decisions knowing well the chance of information being incorrect is diminished. 13.1 Elements of an assurance engagement. Following elements comprise an assurance engagement. 1. A three-party relationship involving a practitioner, a responsible party, and intended users. An assurance engagement involves above said three parties. A practitioner is a person who provides the assurance. The term practitioner is broader than auditor. Audit is related to historical information, whereas practitioner may provide assurance not necessarily related to historical financial information. A responsible party is the party responsible for preparation of subject matter. Intended users are the persons for whom an assurance report is prepared. These persons may use the report in making decisions. 2. An appropriate subject matter. It refers to the information to be examined by the practitioner. For example, financial information contained in financial statements while conducting audit of financial statements. 3. Suitable criteria. These refer to benchmarks used to evaluate the subject matter like standards, guidance, laws, rules and regulations. 4. Sufficient appropriate evidence. The practitioner performs an assurance engagement to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence. It is on the basis of evidence that conclusions are arrived and an opinion is formed by auditor. Sufficient relates to quantity of evidence obtained by auditor. Appropriate relates to quality of evidence obtained by auditor. One evidence may be providing more comfort to auditor than the other evidence. The evidence providing more comfort is qualitative and, therefore, appropriate. Evidence should be both sufficient and appropriate. 5. A written assurance report in appropriate form. A written report is provided containing conclusion that conveys the assurance about the subject matter. A written assurance report is the outcome of an assurance engagement. Overview of elements of assurance engagement. Checkbox. Elements of an assurance engagement. Three-party relationship. An appropriate subject matter. Suitable criteria. Sufficient appropriate evidence. Written assurance report in appropriate form. 13.2 Meaning of review. Audit vs. review. We have learned that audit is a reasonable assurance engagement. It provides reasonable assurance. However, review is a limited assurance engagement. It provides lower level of assurance than audit. Further, review involves fewer procedures and gathers sufficient appropriate evidence on the basis of which limited conclusions can be drawn up. However, both audit and review are related to financial statements prepared on the basis of historical financial information. 13.3 Types of assurance engagements. Reasonable assurance engagement vs. limited assurance engagement. As already discussed, assurance engagements provide assurance to users. The differences of degree. Reasonable assurance engagement like audit provides reasonable assurance, which is a high level of assurance. Limited assurance engagement like review provides lower level of assurance than audit. It is only a moderate level of assurance. Reasonable assurance engagement. Limited assurance engagement. Reasonable assurance engagement provides high level of assurance. Limited assurance engagement provides lower level of assurance than reasonable assurance engagement. It performs elaborate and extensive procedures to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence. It performs fewer procedures as compared to reasonable assurance engagement. It draws reasonable conclusions on the basis of sufficient appropriate evidence. It involves obtaining sufficient appropriate evidence to draw limited conclusions. Example of reasonable assurance engagement is an audit engagement. Example of limited assurance engagement is review engagement. Besides reasonable assurance engagements and limited assurance engagements, there is another kind of assurance which is related to matters other than historical financial information. Such an assurance may relate to prospective financial information and not to historical financial information. It may relate to providing assurance on internal controls in an entity. Prospective financial information means financial information based on assumptions about events that may occur in the future and possible actions by an entity. It can be in the form of a forecast or projection or combination of both. It is to be noted that in such type of assurance engagements, examination is not of historical financial information. Here, it is important to note the difference between historical financial information and prospective financial information. The former relates to information expressed in financial terms of an entity about economic events, conditions or circumstances occurring in past periods. The latter relates to financial information based on assumptions about occurrence of future events and possible actions by an entity. Therefore, historical financial information is rooted in past events which have already occurred, whereas prospective financial information is related to future events. In assurance reports involving prospective financial information, the practitioner obtains sufficient appropriate evidence to the effect that management's assumptions on which the prospective financial information is based are not unreasonable. The prospective financial information is properly prepared on the basis of the assumptions and it is properly presented and all material assumptions are adequately disclosed. Prospective financial information relates to future events. While evidence may be available to support the assumptions on which the prospective financial information is based, such evidence is itself generally future-oriented. The auditor is, therefore, not in a position to express an opinion as to whether the results shown in the prospective financial information will be achieved. Therefore, in such assurance engagements, practitioner provides a report assuring that nothing has come to practitioner's attention to suggest that these assumptions do not provide a reasonable basis for the projection. Hence, such type of assurance engagement provides only a moderate level of assurance. Examples of assurance engagements. Checkbox. Example of assurance engagement. Type of assurance engagement.